Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to do an installation and a bit of a review on the Zenitco RK-6, which I just got. Going to be installing it on the same AK that I've been upgrading this entire time right here. So without further ado, I will get to switching the camera over and I'll get to installing it. So here we are back at the good old usual table. So before I even take this out of the bag, I know there's people who love to comment about making sure your gun's clear. I check it before every video, and yes, it is clear. I get it. It's extremely important to have good gun safety, but I've seen so many of those comments and I want to preempt them, so yeah, the gun's clear. So, moving on, let's get this out of the bag. It's a little bit of a smaller bag than Zenitco normally sends. This is actually a bit of a tight fit. I'm having issues getting it out of the bag here. I don't want to massacre the bag, but might end up happening regardless. So in the bag, if I could actually get it out, we have a Allen key here, which I will explain what that's for in a bit. I was taking a look at this before I started the video, and there's a few ways you can attach this that are pretty cool. There we go. There's the RK-6 itself, and here is the usual Zenitco documentation with it. So I always like to check the weight, and I'll check it as usual on my actual scale here in a sec. But the weight we have, according to Zenitco, 110 plus or minus 10 grams. So not too heavy at all. Alright, so getting started. Let me actually get the scale on my end, and we'll see how much it actually weighs here. So that fits right where they were saying, 94 grams, a little bit lighter than they would say. My scale isn't perfectly accurate, but more or less. So 96 grams or 3.3 or 3.4 ounces. So not bad. Now that I mentioned there was a few ways to install this earlier, so we have two options. The first is the obvious, just attaching it to the Picatinny, but the second option that's a little bit interesting with how it attaches is you can hook this on the RK-6 onto the B9 AK or the B9M, their gooseneck rail. But before I do that, I wanted to mention why this grip is shaped like it is. So generally I prefer pretty long, kind of the traditional style of, like, you can grip the entire foregrip with your actual entire hand like that. But this one is more of almost of a hand stop, and I've seen it described as being a hand stop in some places. But I wanted to get this for the AK rather than a full-length one, because when you have a magazine in here, especially on AKs with how you eject mags, it can get really in the way if you have a full-length foregrip, which is why I never did put a foregrip on here yet. But with this, especially with how it's cut, it leaves a lot of room for the magazines to come out and not hit it, especially on 7.62 by 39 AKs like the AKM or AK-103s and all the like. I will take this rail cover off. While I'm thinking of it, and while I'm kind of messing around with the grip itself, I'm noticing this has a really comfortable texture to it. When I bought it, I was actually a bit concerned it might be kind of uncomfortable because this is made out of aluminum. I thought it'd be like really cold and all of that, but they have a sort of coating on here. It's kind of a textured feel, which you probably won't be able to see in the camera, but kind of like a really fine grit sandpaper. Not like it'll actually, you know, scrape your hands or anything like that, but that's the best I can think of as an explanation. It's not like the actual aluminum on the handguard or on the B33. It's really comfortable, quite like that. So the way it hooks in is I'm going to need to take this, let's see, there we go. So this entire piece up here, which normally would interface with a Picatinny rail, this part comes off, and then if you can see this kind of T shape here, that actually hooks into the B9. And to take this Picatinny part off, I need to use the Allen key, which they gave, and it'll go from there. And then this just slides off like so. So I will have just cut off quite a bit of footage trying to install this onto the B9 AK rail here. I got a comment on the video, I believe, on the B9 AK when I did it, mentioning that you were able to install these grips onto these goosenecks. Perhaps you can on the regular B9 or the B9Ms, but it appears to not be possible unless I'm just really missing something really obvious, but doesn't seem to be actually attachable to the B9AK, of which this gooseneck is specifically. But at any rate, that's fine, because I was just planning on installing it on the Picatinny anyway, but sorry if any of you were hoping to see that, because I don't know how to put it on. I don't think it does attach with the B9AK. Attaching it to the Picatinny itself, though, is pretty straightforward, so we just gotta line it up on that other side, and I want it all the way back, so just like that. And then this plate, just like with the B9AK and seemingly a lot of Zenitco products, I just need to slide this plate over, and then the screws will just go right in. And there we go. That is on. I'm gonna do a little bit of just dry handling here. I'll try it out as well at the range, but I'll give them kind of a first impression here in just a moment. So I was doing a little bit of handling off camera, and I'm actually thinking this is a lot more comfortable with this grip on. Earlier I mentioned that I like having grips where I can have my hand on it completely. I think I mentioned that. It's not actually true. There are a few situations where I do, but most of the time I actually prefer gripping the rifle like almost like I'm slapping it and then just grabbing wherever my hand slapped in, so just like that. And I think that's really comfortable, and this grip lets me do just that. Sometimes, normally just when I'm like grabbing the rifle to pull it out of storage, I actually like having the full handle to just pull it out from there, but when I'm actually using the rifle, I normally prefer holding it like this. So yeah, really comfortable so far. This rifle with this scope, which I'm considering getting a different scope, but I'm going to stick with this for now. It's really heavy with a fully loaded mag, which this isn't, but if I had it fully loaded, it's weighing at about, I believe, 10.75 pounds. I guess it would be a little bit more. When I measured that weight, it was without the grip on, so just add a few more ounces on, pretty negligible, but still it's really close to 11 pounds, which is getting extreme. Even if it's, 10.7 or 11 or 10.5 pounds is still quite heavy. And a lot of that is just from this scope, which is 2 pounds on its own. But at any rate, being able to grip like this really helps with kind of, even though the rifle itself isn't any lighter, it helps to distribute the weight quite a bit better. And in terms of reloads, I haven't noticed any issues with this interfering so far. I haven't done any actual huge amount of dedicated reload drills yet, but it doesn't seem to be causing an issue. I do pull the mag pretty far, well, I angle it pretty far forward, when I'm reloading myself, but even then, and even when I'm intentionally trying to, when I'm intentionally trying to pull it as far forward as possible, it gets a little bit high, hits it, but a normal reload, it does not cause an issue at all. I normally go out to about there, so having a grip this far back with a regular length grip definitely would have caused an issue, but thanks to this shape here, it's really working out quite well. So next I'll actually test it out at the range, do some reload drills, or at least as many as I can with limited ammo, and hopefully all goes well. Starting off at the range, I did a quick shoulder switch and then I did a few reloads. I didn't do as many reloads as I would have liked to practice with the RK-6 because I didn't actually have my dump pouch on me, just because of how some of my gear fits or doesn't fit over my winter jacket. Then I got to doing some more shoulder switching to see how well the grip kind of helps me there, and I noticed that it actually does. The grip helps me a little bit to get into position quicker when I'm switching hands. It acts as kind of a quick grab point for whichever hand is going to the handguard on the rifle. Okay, so we're back from the range. I am really loving this foregrip. It seems like it's a lot easier to control recoil now that I have this foregrip on here compared to when I did not. However, on that note, it could just be having a foregrip. I don't necessarily want to say that it's this RK-6 being like above and beyond any other foregrip out there, but it is a really good foregrip, and it certainly has helped me quite a bit. One thing I noticed is when I was out at the range, I wasn't really able to kind of switch shoulders as much as I would have liked because of the weight of this scope actually back here. It was making it a little bit difficult. I was worried I'd drop the rifle because it was so kind of heavy back there. I was worried if when I switched my hands around that I would drop it. But with the little bit of switching that I did do, it seemed to really help, as I kind of mentioned earlier over the shooting footage, to just kind of get my hand in there really quick and just very quickly with either hand find a spot to hold it. I kind of wanted to try a little bit of rapid fire to see how much it would help me to kind of stay on target and control the rifle. I wasn't really able to do that because ammo's a bit hard to come by right now, and I normally don't do rapid fire anyway, but I did want to try that a bit. I wasn't able to, but I think just from the shooting I did do, it did help me to control the recoil. One thing, I know I mentioned that already, but one thing I wanted to touch on with that is I know an alternative that I've done a lot, and I see a lot of other people do, is a magwell grip. And that's really good, but I actually think you are better off with a foregrip, because when you do have a magwell grip, you have this entire, just all this weight out here. I feel like it is a little bit more difficult to control the rifle when you're holding it back here, as opposed to holding it up here, even in the same kind of style of grip. In terms of the reloads, like I said, I did quite a few of those both on and off camera. And yeah, I had no issues. This never hit or anything like that. And I kind of, you probably saw, I tend to reload differently. I like to grab the other magazine out first and then have them both in my hand. That way it kind of minimizes the amount of time that the gun is fully unloaded. But even when I'm reloading like that, I had no issue. Never hit the RK-6 or anything like that at all. Which, you know, I mentioned earlier that this isn't like the god of all foregrips, but in that case, it kind of is a really good design feature that I don't see many other foregrips have, except for angled foregrips, which I'll mention in a second. But this slant right here helps so much, and in terms of other vertical foregrips, you don't see that on many of them because it's kind of just a AK exclusive issue that you would have. But I have seen other people just take, like, for example, if you wanted to, you could take a mag pull grip or really any vertical foregrip and just take a Dremel or something to cut it and just cut a slant into it too. That would work. So as I mentioned earlier, I did say that angled foregrips are also an option, and I did try one, and I actually showed it in my B10 installation video, and that was the Magpul AFG2, which is their shorter version. And the reason I don't have that on here, and the reason I went with this RK6, was actually because that doesn't fit onto the B10. Even the AFG2, as I said, the shorter one, it still hangs about this much over the edge, just up to where my pinky is, which I didn't like. It would probably still lock up and stay on the gun nice, but it aesthetically looked really bad, so I just couldn't go with it. And one other thing I checked is I actually have pretty large hands, but I'm even able to actually hold this just like an actual foregrip. I guess my pinky is a little bit off of it, but if you really want to, you can have a full-on hold of the vertical foregrip, and it totally works. As I said, I prefer doing it like this. I feel like it gives me better control of the rifle, but if you prefer holding it like this, it actually is long enough to do so. So now all is said and done, I would definitely recommend this grip personally. For myself, I find it helps me a ton with just like the comfort and the ergonomics and handling the gun when shooting. But on that note, my personal preferences, especially for something like this where it's dealing with the ergonomics and the handling of the gun, that's just my preferences. Like, especially here, it could be totally different for you, where something else might actually work out better in your case just because of how you're built, or you know, how long your arms are, whatever it may be. So that's something to definitely take into consideration. But at least in my case, I would definitely recommend it. I don't have any downsides with this grip. It's worked great so far, so I think it's pretty good. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you found this informative. I will see you all